You develop instincts out here. When the forest goes silent. When your dog won't move forward. When you feel watched. They don't teach you that part in training. They teach you radio codes and map grids and what to do when a black bear decides the trail is his. They don't teach you how to tell the difference between your own footsteps and someone else's walking perfectly in time behind you. My name is Ranger Nora Beck. Glacier National Park, North District, 9 years in the service. And if you stay with me, I'll tell you about 3 times the forest listened back. We're in the briefing room when I say it out loud for the first time. 6 rookies sit in plastic chairs, still wearing their academy haircuts and that expression you only see on people who haven't had the woods talk to them yet. Outside the windows, the mountains are smudged with snow and cloud. Inside, the projector hums and smells faintly of dust. I click to the next slide. A narrow trail, early winter, a strip of dirt between walls of fir and lodgepole, boot prints stitched along one edge. This is Line Creek Trail, I tell them. Elevation around 6,500, north aspect, good visibility, good drainage, standard hazard assessment. They nod like they're in school again. And this, I say, is where the first hiker realized something was matching his footsteps. I let that sit. A couple of them smile, waiting for the punchline, for the ghost story curve. They think this is the part where the veteran ranger tries to spook them. Instead, I lean against the table and fold my arms. We have a rule up here, I say. You won't find it in the manuals. You'll hear it in the radio room at 2 a.m. or taped to the inside of someone's locker. I look at each of them in turn. If you stop and it stops, you're fine. If you stop and it doesn't, I pause, turn back. Someone shifts in their chair. One of the rookies, a tall guy from Colorado, raises a hand before he catches himself. Yes? I ask. Ma'am, that's just wildlife, right? He says. Cougars, maybe. Elk shadowing the trail. Sometimes, I say, predators will pace you. They like patterns. They test your rhythm, your attention. But that's not what I'm talking about. Click. The next slide is audio software. Waveforms pale blue against black. Spikes and valleys, rhythmic as a heartbeat. Listen, I say. I hit play. The room fills with the crunch of boots on packed snow. 1, 2, 1, 2, the regular 4-beat pattern of a hiker and their dog moving uphill. Then, faint under the main track, a second pattern appears, slightly delayed. Same weight, same cadence. The rookies lean forward. Could be echo, the Colorado kid says. I nod. Could be. I freeze the waveform, zoom in until the footsteps become data. Tiny repeating mountains, doubled and offset. Out here sound does strange things, I tell them. Snowpack acts like a wall. You get acoustic shadowing. Your steps bounce off hard layers and come back to you a split second late. Valleys act like instruments. The wind slaps noise around until you can't tell front from back. I let my voice drop into the educational cadence the service likes for videos. In winter, we get temperature inversions, cold, dense air hugging the ground, warmer layers above it. That lower layer is a tunnel. Sound travels farther, bends harder. You can hear a branch snap a mile away and swear it's at your shoulder. Slides flick past. Diagrams of temperature layers, cross-sections of snowpack, arrows showing how sound curves through cold air. And predators, I add, are the original sound technicians. They smile again, uneasy but interested. Cougars, wolves, even bears. They test distance with your footsteps. They'll stay just inside the tree line. You step, they step. You stop, they might not. That's natural. That's explainable. That's when you make noise, show size, and back out slow. I click back to the waveform. But these weren't illusions, I say quietly, and what followed them knew when to breathe. The room goes still. There are 3 cases I want you to understand before you start patrols, I continue. Different years, different trails. Same report, Something walking behind them, matching pace exactly. Always somewhere they couldn't see. Always stopping when they did. I point at the projected screen. Case 1, Line Creek, 2014. Solo hiker with a dog. Case 2, Avalanche Basin, 2017. 2 campers, 1 audio file. Case 3, Kintala Ridge, 2020. I don't say what happened in the third case yet. Instead, I shut off the projector. The room dims instantly, the gray light from the window flattening everyone's faces. Without the hum of the machine, you can hear the building itself. Wood creaking, vents ticking, the far-off slosh of a plow outside. That feeling, I say, right now, how your ears are reaching for the next noise, that's what we're talking about. I tap the recorder on the table. The human brain is pattern-hungry. It hates silence. When the forest goes quiet, your mind starts building sound out of whatever it can. Breath, heartbeat, jacket fabric. You'll swear you hear someone behind you when there's nothing but your own fear changing shape. I let them have that comfort for 1 beat. Most of the time, I add. They look back at the frozen waveform on the blank screen like they can still see it. What I'm going to show you next, I say, is why we wrote the footstep rule. I plug headphones into the old field recorder, an analog brick that's outlived 3 digital models. The label on the side reads, Line Creek 2014 Raw. First account was from a guy named Evan, I say. He was careful, experienced. Logged his route, checked in on time, carried a recorder because he liked cataloging bird calls. I press play and switch to speaker mode so they can hear. Crunch, crunch, crunch. Snow under boots. The soft, wet squeak of a dog's paws. Wind in the pines like a low radio. Evan's breathing. Steady, unhurried. Then, 30 seconds in, the pattern shifts. The original 2 sets of steps continue, man and dog, forward, forward, forward. Another set joins. Same pace, same weight, no panting, no gear rattle, just impact, as if the trail itself had grown feet. The rookies go very still. Colorado finally says, Okay, but that could still be. I raise a finger. Count, I tell them. They listen again. This time, even the slow ones hear it. 4 distinct footstep rhythms, when there should only be 2. Case 1, the Appalachian Loop, 2014. The forest keeps better rhythm than most musicians. Every sound has a pattern. The snap of a twig, the sigh of pine boughs, the crunch of boots on frost. What unsettles people isn't the noise. It's when that rhythm learns theirs. The 2014 case started with Evan Laird, 36, an experienced solo backpacker from Asheville who knew how to read a compass by the moon. He logged his trips, carried redundant batteries, and kept a paper map folded flat against the sweat of his back. A minimalist, but not careless. He began the Appalachian Loop in early October, hiking north from Fontana Dam with light snow predicted by the weekend. The last message he sent to his sister read, "Signals fading. 2 more nights, then home." It would be 4 days before he was found. Day 1, the noise in the pines. According to his recovered journal, it began on the 2nd afternoon. Something in the tree line pacing. Keeps just far enough not to see. Could be a deer, but the steps sound heavier. SAR later determined the section he described was a mix of frozen leaves and hollow roots. Perfect acoustics for false echo returns. When sound bounces between uneven surfaces, it layers over itself, creating a delay so subtle your brain translates it as something walking with you. But the pacing didn't stop when Evan did. He wrote again that evening. Paused to tie my boot. Heard 2 more steps after mine stopped. Tried to laugh it off, but the dog would have barked if it was anything normal. Wish I'd brought the dog. Day 2, the mirror step. By the second day, his notes shift from humor to calculation. Counted. My stride equals 1.12 seconds per step. The sound behind me matches interval exactly. He began recording that afternoon on a small handheld device, one of those old field recorders birders love. The file survived. 0 hours, 14 minutes, and 22 seconds. 2 steps. Pause. 2 more. Pause. Then his breathing quickens, microphone brushing against his jacket zipper. 0 hours, 14 minutes, and 33 seconds. Stop. Silence for 5 seconds. Crunch, crunch. You can hear him whisper, "That's not wind," before the recording cuts. Ranger Nora Beck's narration would later explain this section during her debrief. The mind has a habit called cognitive synchronization. It expects pattern continuity. When that rhythm breaks, it fills in missing beats to restore order. You might think you hear footsteps because your brain refuses the randomness of silence. Fear isn't imagination. It's a malfunction of timing. She pauses in her audio report. But sometimes the tape disagrees. Day 3. The abandoned camp. Search and rescue found his tent collapsed beside Copper Gap Creek, 6 miles off trail. No signs of a fight, no blood, no drag marks. His gear was intact. Stove folded neatly, bear bag hung high, sleeping bag unrolled but dry. On the tent floor, his journal lay open, half a page filled before the pen line broke mid-word. It walks when I don't. Next to the tent, the mud bore 3 overlapping trails, his boots leading in from the creek, his partial retreat toward the ridge, and a third line that ended mid-stride. The SAW report reads like someone ran out of language. No sign of struggle, tracks begin at water crossing, no return prints. That was the official phrase, no return prints, which became code in later ranger briefings for something that didn't leave. Beck's analysis, the missing rhythm. Ranger Beck's case review a year later treats the file like a puzzle, not a haunting. She plays the recovered recording through a spectral analyzer. The pattern is there. 2 beats, a gap, 2 more. When she filters out ambient sound, something else surfaces beneath the snow crunch. A second breath. Soft, slow, not his. Not human either. No exhale rasp, no nasal tone, just the intake, deliberate and patient, as if whatever followed him was learning how to do it. At the 0 hours, 28 minutes, and 4 seconds mark, the 2 rhythms merge. His steps and the echo step into sync until it's impossible to tell which one leads. Then both stop. After that, the file runs 12 more minutes with only wind. Evan was found the next day by a ridge patrol, sitting upright against a downed log. No visible trauma, eyes open. Hypothermia, the report said, though the temperature that night hadn't dropped low enough to kill a prepared hiker. His pulse returned briefly in the helicopter. He lived 3 more hours and never woke. In his pack was a small SD card labeled, quote, footsteps. Beck copied it to archive, naming the folder Case 14A, Appalachian Loop. When asked for her personal notes, she wrote one line at the bottom of the report. Echo doesn't breathe back. Cliffhanger. That night, reviewing the audio in her ranger cabin, Beck lets the tape run past the official timestamps, a habit born from curiosity or superstition. At 0 hours, 28 minutes, and 37 seconds, she hears it again. The breathing, louder now, closer, pulling in air through something too wide to be lungs. And just before the file ends, under her own reflection in the laptop screen, she hears the smallest sound, 2 quiet steps, timed perfectly with her heartbeat, as if the rhythm had found a new home. Case 2, the Olympic Outpost, 2017. The Olympic rainforest has its own kind of quiet. Not the empty silence of snow, but a muffled, wet hush where every sound feels half swallowed by moss. You can walk a mile there and never hear your own echo, unless, of course, something decides to make one for you. In May of 2017, Dana and Miguel Torres, a couple out of Portland, camped 3 miles beyond the marked trail at the edge of the Olympic outpost. They were experienced section hikers with 5 years worth of weekend treks and a spotless record of leave no trace. They pitched their tent by a cedar grove, recorded a quick vlog, and settled in for the night. At 11:43 p.m., Dana hit record again, this time because she'd heard footsteps outside. Recording log Torres_2017_audio_03 MP4. 0 hours, 2 minutes and 11 seconds. Campfire crackling. Rain on the tarp. 0 hours, 2 minutes and 22 seconds. Miguel whispers, probably deer. 0 hours, 2 minutes and 27 seconds. Dana, no, listen, it's walking a circle. 0 hours, 3 minutes and 5 seconds. Crunch, crunch, crunch. 0 hours, 3 minutes and 14 seconds. Second pattern begins. Counterdirectional. Same distance. Same speed. 0 hours, 4 minutes and 8 seconds. Metallic clicking, faint, under the wind. SAR recovered this file 2 days later from a half-buried phone beneath their extinguished campfire. The couple was found a quarter-mile apart at dawn, alive, dehydrated, and shaken. They remembered the steps circling their tent, but not how they'd gotten outside. Dana's left boot was missing. Miguel's socks were soaked through, no mud on the soles. When Ranger Beck arrived on scene, she noted a symmetry in the prints that made her stomach drop. 2 tracks, human size, circled the tent in opposite directions, one left, one right. The right set, she realized, was inverted. Heel marks pointed forward. Toes pointed back. The report simply read, symmetrical gait pattern, mirrored orientation, no entry or exit path identified. She snapped photographs anyway, not because she thought anyone would believe it, but because the human brain likes evidence, even when it doesn't help. Later, in her Ranger debrief, Beck breaks it down like a naturalist instead of a ghost hunter. We see this in high-moisture forests, she says. Heavy air, high humidity, mixed canopy. Those are perfect conditions for temperature inversion layers, where warm air traps cold air beneath it, bending sound waves across the ground. When that happens, noises you make can return from the wrong direction. She clicks to a diagram, lines of sound curling downward like heat mirages. Infrasound under 20 Hz can cause nausea, dread, even hallucination. It's why people get vertigo before storms. You feel the noise, not hear it. The forest hums in your chest. She lets the scientific calm settle for a beat before continuing. That's the rational explanation. But that still doesn't account for the prints. The interview Beck consults Dr. Alan Harrow, wildlife behavior specialist and field biologist known for his blunt answers. He reviews the photos and listens to the Torres audio in silence. Predators test rhythm before they strike, he finally says. They match your steps to learn your reaction time. Mountain lions will sink stride for stride until you hesitate. That hesitation tells them when you're prey. He rewinds the recording again. Except this isn't testing, he adds. It's teaching. The phrase doesn't make it into the official report. The SAR follow-up reveals another anomaly. The first set of prints begins 10 feet inside the clearing, not into it, in it. No sign of approach, no broken undergrowth, no disturbed moss. Like something started walking only once it was seen. Beck adds this case to the Appalachian Loop file from 2014. Both recordings, different states, different years, show a strange interference pulse when viewed through frequency analysis. It's a low, repeating thump around 2 Hz, below audible range but consistent through both soundscapes. Beck writes in her field notes, "The forest doesn't echo, it resonates." She overlays both tracks on her laptop, their peaks glowing across the spectrogram. Each set of footsteps creates a rhythm, a pulse that rides just under hearing. When she aligns them, they fuse two soundscapes from opposite coasts, walking in perfect time. 12.3 seconds between steps. Exactly. Not human. Not random. Not weather. That night, Beck logs her observation for the archive, voice quiet, almost embarrassed. "I used to think echoes were the forest returning your voice. Now I think it's waiting for something worth keeping." She closes the case file but leaves the headphones on, staring at the empty screen as the hum continues. Outside her ranger cabin, the rain has stopped. The air feels thick enough to touch. Somewhere beyond the tree line, thunder rolls without lightning. Slow, deliberate, like something large moving its weight from one foot to the other. And beneath that distant rumble, she hears it again. A faint metallic click, counting down the seconds between steps. Case 3, The Boundary Waters, 2020. There's a sound that only the boundary waters make. The soft, endless shuffling of trees breathing against water. When the wind dies, it's not silence you hear. It's the forest exhaling slow, waiting to see what you'll do next. That's what it sounded like the night ranger Nora Beck answered the call. Dispatch log, 2047 hours. 2 hikers reporting unknown presence, northwest quadrant. Phrase used, "Something's pacing us." Beck had heard the phrase before. It always came with the same tremor, the voice of someone who'd stopped believing in their own explanations. She took 2 other rangers with her, Carter and Shaw, and launched by boat across a channel that glowed like tarnished glass. They hit the shore at dusk. Mosquitoes whispered in clouds around their lamps. The trail was narrow, hemmed in by birch trunks, slick with rain. Each footstep landed heavy on moss, soundless but certain. For the first hour, the woods behaved. Then Beck noticed the rhythm. Crunch, step, pause. Crunch, step, pause. Every time she stopped, the noise stopped too. "Echo?" Carter asked. His voice was too bright. "Not in this humidity," Beck said. "Sound doesn't travel like that here." They walked again. The noise matched them perfectly, a delayed imitation, like an actor learning their lines one breath too late. When they reached the first ridge, Shaw muttered, "We're being mirrored." Then the radios began to fail. Static burst through Beck's headset. She tapped at the side, listening. A voice, faint, familiar, crackled in the feedback. "Range 2 to base, approaching waterline." That was her own voice. From 10 minutes ago. "Range 2 to base." Then again, slightly slower. "Approaching waterline." Carter ripped his headset off. "That's you," he said. "I know." The next thing they heard wasn't human. A low, mechanical hum rising beneath the static, pulsing every 12 seconds. Beck recognized it from her earlier cases. The 12.3-second interval. They reached the distressed hikers' last coordinates near a small clearing by a pond. The fire was still smoldering, camp chairs overturned. The air felt wrong. Thick with ozone, like lightning had struck somewhere nearby and then changed its mind. One of the hikers' recorders was still running, red light blinking against damp grass. Beck crouched beside it and hit playback. Audio log, boundary_2020_05.wav. 012. Footsteps, 4 sets. 019. Pause. 020. 5th set begins, heavier, slower. 027. 6th set joins in, overlapping perfectly. The recorder crackled, then emitted the same faint metallic click from the Olympic outpost incident. That sounded like a piece of gear moving where no one was wearing it. She stopped the playback and glanced at Carter, How many of us are here?" "3," he said. "Then why are there 6 on this recording?" Ranger Beck's later report described it clinically. When under threat, humans anthropomorphize sound. We assign intention to rhythm. A snapping branch becomes pursuit. A repeating pattern becomes mimicry. It's survival instinct, not logic. Then, she'd added in handwriting along the margin, unless the rhythm changes when you do. Night came fast, as it always does when fear shortens the day. The sky lowered until even the stars hid. Beck ordered retreat to the shoreline. The team followed compass bearings, but after 20 minutes they broke into the same clearing again. Same smoldering fire, same overturned chairs. Only this time, the recorder was gone. Shaw swore under his breath. Carter swung his headlamp around. Their beams crossed over wet ground. Fresh prints. 3 sets matched theirs. The 4th led nowhere. Beck's hands trembled as she opened her field notebook. Her handwriting was cramped, each word drawn tight. "It's not following anymore," she wrote. "It's waiting for us to stop." She keyed her body cam and spoke softly into the mic. "If this file's found, location unchanged, multiple auditory sources, unknown origin, we're—" A crackling pop interrupted. Her own voice answered over the radio. "Unknown origin, we're—" Then again, and again. Each loop slower, fainter, as if the forest were learning the lines by repetition. Carter shouted something from behind her. She never caught what. The camera turned, catching a blur of light and fog. Footsteps erupted all around, not running, approaching. Her last frame caught a flicker of her own reflection in the cam lens, mouth open mid-command. Then, faint and unmistakable, the same delayed breath that had haunted Evan Laird's Appalachian recording filled the speaker. Inhale. Pause. Exhale. And the file cut to black. The recovery team found Beck's camera 2 days later, wedged in the roots of a birch, overlooking the same clearing. Her radio was still transmitting a dead channel loop, 12 seconds of static, repeating like a heartbeat that refused to stop. The ranger's desk was small, the kind built for logs and not for truths. 3 recordings sat open on Nora Beck's laptop, 2014, 2017, 2020, lined up like a heartbeat stretched across years. Each one came from a different forest, a different case, a different voice. Same pattern, same pulse, same sound, none officially connected. The audio lab called it a coincidence of natural resonance, a string of storms, temperature inversions, and signal corruption that somehow built the same 12.3-second cadence in all 3 files. But Beck knew better. Patterns don't form across 6 years of distance unless something's keeping time. She leaned back in her chair and listened to the hum beneath the noise, the almost breathing between steps. "You think you're listening to the forest," she said softly, half to herself, half to the recorders. "But sometimes it's the forest listening to you." The science of fear. Fear of being followed, Beck knew, isn't superstition. It's biology. The limbic system fires first. Logic follows after. Every mammal that's ever lived in the dark learned the same law. What matches your rhythm is hunting you. She flipped through her notes. Auditory mirroring in dense canopy equals 0.2-second delay. Low-frequency waves under 20 Hz trigger nausea, panic, perception of proximity. Brain misreads own steps as external source. That's the textbook version, the version she used for school groups and journalists who wanted safe strangeness. But then she looked at the spectrogram overlays again. The pulses weren't random. They built toward each other, merging, aligning, almost communicating. 3 forests, 3 files, 1 heartbeat. Her recorded ranger commentary became something between science and confession. If you ever feel watched out here, stop walking. Don't trust the sound. Trust the silence. Stop frequently. Listen. Let your heartbeat settle until you can tell what's yours and what's borrowed. Keep analog recordings. Digital ones adjust automatically, smooth out frequencies. The old tape decks catch what's underneath. If something mirrors your pace, change your rhythm. Whistle, hum, skip steps, anything. Unpredictability breaks sync. Most of what hunts, real or imagined, depends on routine. She paused, the next line harder to say aloud. If you stop and it doesn't, turn back. That had been her rule since Glacier. Now it was doctrine. The investigation. The official inquiry into the Boundary Waters incident lasted 2 months. Beck filed her report. No foul play. No predator confirmed. All rangers accounted for, except Shaw, who transferred south 2 weeks later and refused to speak on record. The department replaced their comms with encrypted units, citing, quote, frequency instability. They didn't replace the forests. When Beck left the Ranger Service that winter, she took the 3 recordings with her. For teaching, she said, but no one asked what. At home, she layered them again, aligning their timestamps until the footsteps fell into unison. The result wasn't terrifying. It was measured, calm, intentional. Like a metronome under a prayer. Beck's reflection. In her final voice note, one never filed, only found later on her recorder, she spoke slowly, as though the silence between words needed to be fed. Every ranger has a story about something that moved when they did. Most of us pretend it's nothing. The wind, a bear, our own paranoia. But you start to recognize patterns. You start to realize the forest remembers rhythm. She exhaled. The mic caught a faint echo, the kind that doesn't belong indoors. I don't think it's following anymore, she said. I think it learned to wait. The final analysis. At 2:17 a.m., she merged all 3 tracks again. Evan's 2014 footsteps, the Torres campfire audio, and her own Boundary Waters recording. The result was seamless. 5 seconds in, a single synchronized step echoed through the waveform. Then another, then another. Each thud matched the next with mathematical precision, 12.3 seconds apart. Then, a 6th pattern joined. Not from any file, not from the past. Live. Her microphone light blinked once. Recording. The sound built slow, steady, unhurried. Step. 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 She reached forward to mute it, but hesitated. Every warning sign is a grave marker, she whispered. But maybe this one's just a mirror. The noise stopped. Silence, thick and breathing. And then, just before the recording cut, the faintest sound returned. Her own step, delayed by a heartbeat. You think you're walking alone, but something's always learning your step. The forest didn't answer. It never had to.